Hi, my name is Victor and you're with Revit Experiments. I'm really excited to show you these two notes, especially because I've been asked about this several times now, and it is finally here. So, some time ago, I created a node that creates automatically dimensions between structural columns in Revit and the closest to each column grid line. So, for example, it would create automatically a dimension from this column to this, and actually it's going to be that one and that one. And it worked really well, but it also worked only for structural columns. So now this node works quite similarly to the old one, but it works for any kind of placeable families like these ones. Let me show you how it works. First I need to get all my grids here, and this is what I've done here. Something really important is actually to run these nodes only in manual mode, because we can create an infinite loop if we run this in automatic. And instead of grid heads, it has to be grids here, so we get all the grids in our project. And unlike the previous node, the nodes that worked only for columns, since it was dimensioning to the center point of each column, we needed to tell it which grid lines are in one direction and which are in another direction. So it was really smart about it. So it grouped all grid lines with a name that starts with a number in one group, and grid lines with a name that starts with a letter in another group. And it's really convenient for projects in real life. But here, this script works in a different way. You know how in those families we have these reference planes inside? Have you built families, by the way? Hope you have. So here we have this plane which says center left right, and here we have the other one which says center front back. So this script now, it detects those planes in the family, and then it dimensions to grid lines that are parallel to these planes and closest in the same time, the nearest parallel grid line. And that's how it works. So of course, for the script to work properly, we need to have these planes assigned to center left right and center front back in the family. But once we have that, we can dimension everything to those grid lines. So here, let me just connect the grid lines that I want to use, and then I can just select family instances like this. Let me select those two desks here and some windows and a column, and hit run. And as we can see, these dimensions are now created to the center of this family. If I move it, they stay attached to it. Here as well, we can see the windows are dimensioned, the column is dimensioned, and of course, something that I also did before, but I have it now as well. If a column lies on an intersection, dimensions are not created. And if a column like that one here lies on one grid line, there's going to be a dimension created only in the other direction. And now it wasn't because I selected only the other one. Let me just select it properly, like this. and you can see dimension is created only in one direction. And the cool thing for this script, it works with grid lines that are cut in the middle. It works with the ones with the shoulders like these ones. There were problems with those ones with the previous node in the beginning, but they're solved now. Everything works fine. Here we can add a dimension type. If we don't connect anything, we will just use the default dimension type. Update or create new is an interesting note. By default it's set to true. So now if I just select another object, it will delete the old dimension and it will create new one. But then if I set this to false, it will always create new dimensions. So if now I select that one, it will keep these dimensions and it will create another one here. The thing is, if I do this again, we would have double dimensions here to the same object. So let me disconnect this. I don't want it. Grids to ignore is another really cool one. So here we can actually, but let me first choose some more. Let's select these ones here. Okay, that's really nice because we have a bunch of chairs, desks, and columns. And let's look at that grid line. Its name is 10. And if we want for some reason to exclude this grid line from our calculations, we can just type in here 10 as a string, like this. And if I run the script again, you can see now this one is excluded, so the closest one is that one. And of course we can actually fill it with a list of strings, like what's that one? That one is 12. So we can actually create a list here, and to create a list in Dynamo, as you know, we can just use a comma, and we need this to be a string, and we need to close these brackets here like this. And if I run again, that grid as well is not going to be taken in the calculations. So let's see. Now this dimension is created to that one because that one is the closest parallel to this plane here. And I think that's really neat. If I disconnect this, of course, they will turn back to what we would expect to see. And of course, if we don't want to select elements manually, we can just do something like this. We can get the categories and all elements of category. So let me just copy these nodes, drag them up, and let's select furniture. Where is the furniture? Let me connect this here. And now we get all these dimensions to all of the furniture in our project to its closest grid line. And of course we can just do this for pretty much everything. Like for example, if I copy this one more time and I go here and select Windows, for example, let's go to the Windows, and I add a list.join node like this. I can connect it here, and now we can include the windows as well. And that's why I created this as a node in Dynamo, so you can have this flexibility of use, and you're not going to be limited by some implementation that I had in mind. Whereas if I did this as a plugin to be something here in the ribbon, maybe you'd have another use scenario, and then you need something different. But since it's a node in Dynamo and it's open source, you can pretty much change it the way it suits you. So this is the dimensions, family instances, closest grids. What's the other node then? Let me show you. First, I'm going to disconnect the inputs of this node, and I'm going to get rid of all these dimensions. Have a clear view. And then I'm going to get these select model elements. If you remember, we just selected some model elements a while ago. What happens if I connect these to dimension width height node? Well, first nothing happens. And why is that? Well, if we hover here, we can see that these inputs have the default values disabled, and we can just right click and enable the default values. So the dimension type's default value is no, and update or create new is true. And this works in the same way as this here. Okay, now I can run it, and we can see here what happens. So here for this desk, we have nice dimensions for the width, and it's not height in this case because we're in plan view. But this node also works in any kind of view, not only plan views. We have the length and the width. And if I select the family, we can see that here we have a little bit of a difference in what we get. So how does this node work? And why don't we have these dimensions for the columns? Well, if I open this family one more time, we can see that we have different reference planes inside it. So the way this node works, actually, and you can see, I didn't show you that with the previous node, but they both output the dimensions grouped by family, which is also really nice. So how does it dimension our second node, dimension width height? Well, it gets all these reference planes inside the family. It detects which of those are parallel, and then it gets the furthest apart. So it gets these ones. It gets this size and this size. So if for some reason the family is built in a way that doesn't really dimension to the planes that are furthest apart, that's actually a family that's not built the correct way. Good, so let me show you why it creates these 0 dimensions here for the column. Well, our column family, let me actually switch to find. Our column family only has the center planes. What do I mean by that? We can see that in the family actually it has planes here. But they are set to not a reference. And when they are set to not a reference, then they are not considered. Which kind of makes sense. We can set it to anything else here. Left, right, center, bottom, back, doesn't really matter. Strong reference, weak reference, when it is any kind of reference, then it's going to be taken in the calculations from the node. So I'm going to set these to weak references. Or if you'd like, I'm going to set this to left, just for the sake of it. It doesn't really matter. And if I load it back to the family, actually, that was not the right project file. So if I load this back to my project here, and I run the script again without changing anything here, then I will get the correct dimensions. Again, we have to bear in mind that it will give us this height exactly and this width exactly. So if our width and height here are set differently, that could also be because of the settings of the dimension itself, because as you know, the dimensions have units settings and precision. Anyway, these are the correct numbers. So if you are interested in using these nodes, please visit my website revitexperiments.com. There's gonna be a link below the video in the video description, and you will find how to get them. And also, if you find this interesting, please subscribe, so that would help me create more videos and more content, both for my YouTube channel and my website. Well, thanks for watching this, and if you made it up until here in the video, congrats. Go to the website. There's probably going to be a blog post about these nodes where you can see how you can get them. Thanks for watching, and till the next time. Bye bye.